I'm Raymond, 67 years old, and I just retired after 38 years as a civil engineer for the Oregon Department of Transportation. My colleagues threw me this beautiful retirement party at the Riverside Country Club, complete with speeches about my dedication and integrity. Strange, considering my son Mitchell leaned over during the toasts and whispered in my ear, "The house is ours now, Dad. Time to move somewhere smaller." My blood ran cold. My own son was claiming my home before I'd even finished my retirement cake. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button as I share how I discovered my children's shocking plan and took back control of my life in one decisive night. To understand why Mitchell thought he could simply take my house, you need to know about the Brennan family dynamics. I raised 3 children mostly alone after my wife Patricia passed from cancer when they were teenagers. Mitchell, my oldest at 42, was a real estate developer who always had his eye on profit margins. My daughter Veronica, 40, married a tech executive named James and lived in a mansion in Bellevue, constantly talking about property portfolios and investment opportunities. Then there was my youngest, Trevor, 36, still floating between jobs and living in my converted garage apartment for the past 5 years. Our family home wasn't just any house. It was a 1,920s Craftsman on 3 acres in Lake Oswego, worth approximately $2.8 million in today's market. I'd bought it for $180,000 in 1,987, back when the area was still semi-rural. Over decades, I'd restored every inch with my own hands. The original hardwood floors, the stone fireplace, the wraparound porch where Patricia and I used to watch sunsets. My children grew up treating it like their personal playground, assuming it would always be there for them, assuming it was already theirs by birthright. The Brennan children had developed an unhealthy obsession with inheritance long before my retirement. It started subtly after Patricia's death 15 years ago. Mitchell would casually mention how the house was too much for one person whenever he visited. Veronica would send me articles about reverse mortgages and senior living communities, always with a concerned note about planning for the future. Trevor, despite living rent-free in my garage, he would complain about the main house being underutilized, while he was cramped in 800 square feet. What they didn't understand was that I wasn't some doddering old man ready for pasture. At 67, I hiked Mount Hood regularly, volunteered with Habitat for Humanity, and had just started dating Linda, a retired teacher I'd met at the community center. My mind was sharp, my health excellent, and my pension more than sufficient for my needs. But to my children, retirement meant one thing: time to redistribute Dad's assets. The house had become their obsession because Lake Oswego had transformed from a quiet suburb into Oregon's most exclusive neighborhood. Tech money had flooded in, driving prices skyward. My modest craftsman sat on land developers would kill for. Mitchell had once let slip that the lot alone could be subdivided into 4 luxury homes worth over $1 million each. Veronica saw it as her children's college funds. Trevor viewed it as his lottery ticket out of mediocrity. During family dinners, they'd discuss my house as if I weren't there. Mitchell would sketch development plans on napkins. Veronica would calculate property tax savings if they restructured the ownership. Trevor would measure rooms for his future music studio. They'd already divided my life's work among themselves, treating my home like their personal trust fund. The most painful part? They felt entitled to it, as if my 40 years of mortgage payments and renovations were just placeholder efforts until they could claim their rightful inheritance. My resistance to their plans had always been met with manipulation disguised as concern. When I mentioned wanting to travel with Linda, Mitchell immediately warned about the dangers of elder romance scams. When I renovated the master bathroom with premium fixtures, Veronica questioned my financial judgment and suggested I might need help managing my money. When I refused to add them to the house deed for tax purposes, Trevor accused me of not trusting my own family. The truth was, I'd worked my entire adult life for my independence. Starting as a junior surveyor, I'd climbed the ranks through night school and determination. I'd survived the recession of '91, Patricia's medical bills that nearly bankrupted us, and raising 3 children through their college years. The house represented more than equity. It was proof that Raymond Brennan had built something lasting, something worthwhile. My children seemed to have forgotten those lean years when I worked double shifts to keep the house. They didn't remember the summer I spent recovering from a construction accident, teaching myself to walk again while still managing to keep up with the mortgage. To them, success was inherited, not earned. They'd grown up comfortable and assumed comfort was their birthright. The turning point came 6 months before retirement when I overheard Mitchell on the phone with a contractor, getting estimates for demolition. "Once we get Dad out, we can break ground by spring," he'd said. That's when I realized they weren't waiting for me to die, they were actively planning to displace me. I started documenting everything, recording conversations, keeping emails, noting every instance of their presumption. If they wanted to play games with my future, I'd be ready. Linda noticed the change in me immediately. They're circling like vultures, she said bluntly one evening. You need to protect yourself, Ray. She was right. My children had stopped seeing me as their father and started seeing me as an obstacle to their inheritance. 3 weeks before my retirement party, I discovered something that changed everything. While looking for tax documents in Trevor's garage apartment during one of his rare absences, I found a folder labeled Brennan Estate Planning. Inside were legal documents, not drafts, but completed forms waiting for signatures. Power of attorney papers with Mitchell named as primary agent. A trust document transferring the house to all 3 children with a life estate clause for me that contained disturbing restrictions. Most shocking, a competency evaluation form with a psychologist's name I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I photographed every page. They weren't planning to wait for my death or even my natural decline. They were preparing to have me declared incompetent, to take control of my assets while I was still breathing. The psychological evaluation was already scheduled for 2 weeks after my retirement party. Mitchell had forged my signature on the consent forms. I researched the psychologist, Dr. Gerald Hoffman, and discovered he'd been involved in 3 other suspicious competency cases, all resulting in elderly parents losing control of their estates. Mitchell's business connections ran deep, and apparently, they included professionals willing to bend ethics for the right price. The trust document revealed their plan in detail. Once I was deemed mentally diminished, they'd move me to a senior facility. They'd already picked out Sunset Manor, a place known for warehousing elderly people whose families wanted them forgotten. The house would be immediately transferred to a family trust they controlled. They'd even calculated the monthly allowance they'd generously provide me from my own pension. Linda helped me contact her nephew, Marcus, an estate attorney in Seattle. What I learned terrified me. Once a competency evaluation was initiated with supporting family testimony, it became incredibly difficult to fight. The burden would be on me to prove my mental fitness while my children presented concerns about my behavior. Marcus warned me I had to act before they could execute their plan. Once that psychological evaluation happens, you're playing defense. Right now, you still have the offensive advantage. The 2 weeks leading to my retirement party were surreal. My children suddenly became the most attentive they'd been in years. Mitchell started calling daily, asking about my health, my mood, whether I was sleeping well. Veronica visited twice, bringing groceries I didn't need and insisting on organizing my medications. Trevor actually cleaned the garage apartment and started doing yard work without being asked. Dad's seeming really good lately. I overheard Veronica tell Mitchell during one visit. Maybe we should reconsider. Don't go soft now. Mitchell cut her off. You saw how he snapped at the mailman last week. Clear sign of dementia-related aggression. Dr. Hoffman said these lucid periods are common before rapid decline. I hadn't snapped at anyone. The mailman had accidentally delivered my packages to Mitchell's old room, and I'd simply asked him to be more careful. But already they were constructing a narrative of mental decline, reframing normal interactions as symptoms of incompetence. The retirement party planning became elaborate. Mitchell insisted on handling everything, choosing the Riverside Country Club despite my preference for a simple gathering at home. You deserve the best, Dad, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let us take care of everything. They invited colleagues from my entire career, extended family I hadn't seen in years, even my old college roommate from Vermont. It would be a room full of witnesses to whatever they had planned. Linda wanted me to cancel the party, to strike first with legal action. But Marcus advised patience. Let them show their hand, he said. If they're planning something at the party, we need witnesses to their behavior. Just be ready to act immediately afterward. I spent those weeks quietly preparing. I had the house professionally appraised, $3.1 million, higher than even I'd expected. I opened new bank accounts my children didn't know about. I scanned every important document and stored copies in a safety deposit box. Most importantly, I met with a realtor Linda recommended, someone from outside the area who had no connection to Mitchell's real estate network. The morning of my retirement party, I installed a recording app on my phone that would capture everything within a 15-foot radius. Linda arrived early, wearing a small camera disguised as a brooch. We'd purchased it from a spy shop in Portland. Paranoid yet? She asked with a grim smile. Prepared, I corrected. As guests arrived at the country club, I noticed the staged nature of everything. Mitchell had positioned himself as the devoted son, greeting everyone, sharing stories about how he was Looking after Dad. Veronica played the concerned daughter, mentioning to anyone who'd listen how she worried about me living alone in that big house. Trevor, usually antisocial, he worked the room, talking about his plans to help Dad transition to retirement. Dr. Gerald Hoffman was there, introduced as a family friend who specialized in senior wellness. He made a point of engaging me in conversation, asking seemingly innocent questions about dates, current events, my daily routine. I recognized the mini mental state examination hidden in his casual chat. I played along, appearing occasionally confused but not enough to raise immediate flags. During dinner, I watched Mitchell slip something into my coffee while pretending to add sugar. I'd anticipated this, probably a mild sedative to make me appear disoriented. When he wasn't looking, I switched cups with the empty one at the place setting next to mine. 20 minutes later, I acted slightly drowsy, fumbling with my fork, speaking a bit slower. Mitchell exchanged satisfied glances with Veronica. The speeches began after dessert. My former supervisor, Robert, spoke about my 40 years of dedicated service. Colleagues shared stories of my problem-solving abilities and integrity. Then Mitchell stood, raising his champagne glass. His speech was masterful in its manipulation, praising my career while subtly emphasizing that it was time for rest, for family to take care of things now. He ended with, "Dad, you've carried the load long enough. Let us carry you now." As Mitchell sat down amid applause, he leaned close to my ear, his hand on my shoulder in what appeared to be a loving gesture. "The house is ours now, Dad," he whispered. "Time to move somewhere smaller. We've already got Sunset Manor ready for you. Dr. Hoffman will visit next week to make it official. Just enjoy your party and don't make a scene." In that moment, everything crystallized. The months of planning, the forged documents, the staged party, it all led to this. They expected me to be too drugged, too overwhelmed, too defeated to resist. They'd counted on my generation's politeness, our inability to make public scenes. They were wrong. I stood slowly, tapping my glass for attention. The room quieted. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. 40 years of public service taught me about integrity, duty, and most importantly, standing up for what's right. Tonight, I want to announce my retirement plans. Mitchell's face paled. This wasn't in his script. "I'll be selling the family home," I continued, watching my children's faces transform from confusion to horror. "Linda and I are buying an RV and spending the next few years traveling the country. The house goes on the market Monday morning." Veronica gasped audibly. Trevor dropped his phone. Mitchell started to stand, but I continued. "I know this comes as a shock to my children, who seem to have made other plans for my property without consulting me. But I'm blessed to be healthy, mentally sharp, and ready for adventure." I pulled out my phone, showing the room a photo Linda had taken that morning, me doing a handstand by my pool. "Does this look like someone ready for a nursing home?" Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Dr. Hoffman quietly slipped toward the exit. "So tonight isn't goodbye," I declared. "It's the beginning of my real retirement, one where I choose my own path." The party erupted in chaos the moment I finished speaking. Mitchell cornered me near the bar, his face purple with rage. "You can't sell the house," he hissed. "We have plans, contracts signed, investors lined up. You're going to ruin everything." "Investors?" I asked loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "For my personal residence? The one I still own and live in?" Veronica tried damage control, laughing nervously as she told anyone listening that I was joking, that Dad had always been such a prankster. But Linda was already showing photos on her phone to my colleagues. Screenshots of the forged documents, the competency evaluation appointment, the Sunset Manor admission papers dated for next month. Trevor, panicking about losing his free housing, actually started crying. "Where am I supposed to go?" he wailed. Several guests looked uncomfortable. Here was a 36-year-old man having a meltdown about his father selling his own house. Dr. Hoffman tried to leave quietly, but Linda's nephew Marcus intercepted him at the door. "Dr. Hoffman, I'm an attorney representing Mr. Brennan. We need to discuss the fraudulent competency evaluation you were planning to conduct." The doctor's face went white as Marcus handed him a cease and desist letter in full view of dozens of witnesses. My former supervisor, Robert, approached with concern. "Ray, is everything all right? Are your children pressuring you?" "They're trying to have me declared incompetent and take my house," I said simply. "They've been planning it for months." The revelation spread through the party like wildfire. Colleagues who'd known me for decades were appalled. My cousin Janet, a retired nurse, loudly declared that I was sharper than people half my age. The mood shifted from celebration to protective anger on my behalf. Mitchell made one last desperate play, standing up to announce that I was clearly having an episode, that the family was concerned about my mental state, but I was ready. I played the recording from earlier on my phone, his voice clear. Once we get Dad out, we can break ground by spring. The next 12 hours revealed the full scope of my children's scheme. As the party dissolved into awkward departures and whispered conversations, Mitchell's business partner, Craig, pulled me aside. After several drinks, he confessed that Mitchell had already taken deposits from investors for a development project on my land, promising groundbreaking within 6 months. He'd leveraged loans against the expected property value, telling lenders it was a family trust asset. Veronica's husband, James, separately admitted that they'd already spent their expected inheritance share, taking out a massive loan for a vacation property in Hawaii. Veronica said the house was as good as yours, he told me, slightly drunk and clearly panicked. We're going to lose everything. But the worst revelation came from Trevor. As guests departed, he broke down completely, admitting he'd been recording my conversations for months, documenting every moment of forgetfulness, every repeated story, every time I couldn't find my keys. Mitchell said it was to help you, he sobbed. He said we were protecting you from yourself. Linda had the presence of mind to record these confessions on her phone. Marcus, who'd driven down from Seattle anticipating trouble, took notes for potential legal action. By midnight, we had enough evidence to not only protect me but potentially prosecute my children for conspiracy, fraud, and elder abuse. The complete picture was staggering. They'd created a network of complicit professionals, the psychologist, a banker friend of Mitchell's who'd approved loans based on fraudulent asset claims, even a nurse at Sunset Manor who'd reserved a room for me months in advance. My children had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars they didn't have, betting on stealing my house. That night, back at my home, I made a decision. I called the realtor I'd secretly met with weeks earlier. List it tonight, I said. I want a sign in the yard by sunrise. By 6 a.m. Sunday morning, the For Sale by Haskins Realty sign stood prominently in my front yard. I'd priced it aggressively at $2.9 million for a quick sale. Within hours, my phone exploded with calls and texts from my children, ranging from threats to pleas to incoherent rage. Mitchell arrived first, pounding on the door at 7 a.m. You can't do this, he screamed. I'll sue you. I'll have you declared incompetent. Try it, I replied calmly through the door. I have recordings of you admitting to fraud. Your business partner Craig is willing to testify about the investor deposits you took on property you don't own. And Dr. Hoffman? He's already contacted his lawyer about a plea deal. Veronica showed up next, mascara streaming down her face. Daddy, please, she begged. We'll lose everything. The kids' college funds, our house, everything. James is talking about divorce. You gambled with money you didn't have on an inheritance you weren't entitled to. I responded. That's not my responsibility. Trevor didn't come. I found out later he'd already started packing, finally understanding that his free ride was over. By noon, I had 3 serious offers on the house. By 3 p.m., I'd accepted a cash offer from a tech executive relocating from California, $3.2 million, closing in 2 weeks. The buyer wanted a quick transaction and was willing to pay premium for it. Monday morning, Mitchell tried one last desperate move. He filed an emergency injunction to stop the sale, claiming diminished capacity and undue influence from Linda. But Marcus had anticipated this. We walked into court with a binder of evidence. My recent medical records showing perfect cognitive function, testimony from 20 colleagues about my mental sharpness at the party, the forged documents, recordings of Mitchell's admissions, and documentation of his fraudulent investor scheme. The judge not only denied the injunction but referred the case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Mitchell left the courthouse in handcuffs, arrested on charges of fraud and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. The 2 weeks until closing were surreal. I packed 40 years of memories, keeping only what would fit in the RV Linda and I had purchased. The rest I donated or sold, refusing my children's desperate requests for family heirlooms they'd assumed were theirs. Veronica and James declared bankruptcy, losing their Bellevue mansion and the Hawaiian property. She sent long emails about how I'd destroyed her children's futures, how cruel I was being to family. I responded once, I worked 40 years for my retirement. You tried to steal it. The cruelty was yours. Trevor moved in with a friend, finally forced to find real employment at age 36. He sent a single text. I'm sorry, Dad. Mitchell convinced us you were losing it. I should have seen what we were doing. Mitchell's situation was the most dramatic. The investor fraud investigation revealed he'd taken nearly $800 0 in deposits for my property development. His real estate license was revoked. His business dissolved. He faced up to 15 years in prison. His wife, Sharon, filed for divorce and reached out to apologize. I tried to warn him, she said. I told him it was wrong. He wouldn't listen. The house closing was anticlimactic. I signed papers in a conference room, handed over keys, and walked out with a cashier's check for more money than I'd ever seen. But it wasn't about the money. It was about freedom, dignity, and justice. Linda and I hit the road the next day. Our first stop was the Oregon coast, where we watched the sunset from our RV, wine in hand, truly free for the first time. I'd lost my children, but I'd kept my dignity. They'd revealed themselves as strangers who happened to share my DNA, people who saw me not as a father but as an obstacle to wealth. It's been a year now since that retirement party. Linda and I have visited 37 states, seen the Grand Canyon sunrise, touched the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and made friends in RV parks from Montana to Florida. My pension and the house sale proceeds mean we'll never want for anything. Mitchell was sentenced to 8 years in prison, eligible for parole and 4 with good behavior. Veronica and James divorced. She works as a receptionist now, rebuilding from nothing. Trevor, surprisingly, has thrived. Forced independence sparked something in him. He manages a music store in Eugene and sent a genuine apology letter last month, asking nothing in return. The hardest lesson I learned was this: growing old doesn't mean growing weak. The moment you retire, the moment you show vulnerability, some people, even your own children, might see you as prey. They'll mistake your kindness for weakness, your aging for incompetence, your assets for their inheritance. But here's what I want you to understand. Your life's work is yours. The home you built, the savings you accumulated, the retirement you earned, these aren't pre-inheritance for entitled children. You don't owe anyone your assets while you're still breathing. You have every right to sell what's yours, to live as you choose, to spend every penny you earned on your own happiness. If someone in your life is circling like a vulture, making plans for your property, discussing your assets as if you're already gone, take action. Document everything. Protect yourself legally. And if necessary, be willing to pull the rug out from under them completely. Sometimes the only way to keep your dignity is to refuse to be anyone's victim, even if that anyone is your own family. Have you ever had family members assume they were entitled to your assets? Have you felt pressured to sacrifice your retirement dreams for your children's financial expectations? Tell me in the comments below where you're from and how you've handled family members who confused inheritance with entitlement. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Remember, retirement isn't the beginning of your decline. It's the beginning of your freedom. And anyone who tries to take that freedom from you, regardless of their last name, doesn't deserve a place in your future.